Me and Maya, 25 years old, the youngest of three sisters in a family where I have always felt invisible. For 17 years, my perfect sisters treated me like their personal servant, while our parents looked the other way. Tomorrow is our family dinner celebrating my parents' anniversary. Mom just called saying, "Just watch the kids while we celebrate." What they don't know is this dinner will be their last celebration with me as their doormat. If you're watching this, please let me know where you're from in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to join me on this journey of finally standing up for myself. My family consists of 5 people, though sometimes I wonder if they only count 4. There's my father, Tom, a stern 55-year-old investment banker who built his career from nothing after growing up in a small town in Pennsylvania. My mother, Diana, a graceful 53-year-old former English teacher who quit her job to raise us and maintain our beautiful colonial-style home in the suburbs of Boston. Then there are my sisters, the pride and joy of our parents. Stephanie, my oldest sister at 32, embodies perfection in human form according to my parents. With her flawless complexion, naturally straight teeth, and intelligence that seemed effortless. She breezed through medical school and became a successful pediatric surgeon at Massachusetts General Hospital. She married Jackson, a corporate lawyer who comes from old money, and they have 2 perfect children, Ethan, who is 7, and Isabella, who is 5. Their family photos could be in magazines, and my parents display them prominently throughout the house. Then there's Amber, my second sister, who is 29. Where Stephanie is classically beautiful and serious, Amber is vibrant and charismatic. With her contagious laugh and ability to work any room, she climbed the corporate ladder to become a marketing director for a luxury brand by 27. Her husband, Ryan, is an architect whose designs have won awards, and they have one daughter, Sophie, who is 4 and already taking ballet lessons and speaking basic French. And then there's me, Maya, the afterthought, the one who was never quite pretty enough, smart enough, or successful enough. Growing up, I was constantly compared to my sisters. Why can't you get straight A's like Stephanie? Or Amber would have made the varsity team by now. Every accomplishment of mine paled in comparison to theirs, and over time I became invisible except when someone needed something done. Our family home in Boston is a spacious 2-story colonial with pristine white columns and black shutters. Inside, the walls are adorned with photos of Stephanie's medical school graduation, Amber's wedding, and all 3 of my nieces and nephews in various professional photo shoots. There are exactly 2 photos of me, both group family portraits, where I stand awkwardly at the edge, almost as if I could be cropped out without anyone noticing. Next week is a big family dinner. It's my parents' 35th wedding anniversary. And coincidentally, Stephanie just successfully completed a groundbreaking surgery that saved a child with a rare heart condition. The local newspaper wants to feature her, and my parents couldn't be prouder. Everyone will be there to celebrate both occasions, and as usual, I'm expected to handle all the preparations. When Mom called to discuss the dinner, I felt a familiar flutter of hope. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe someone would acknowledge my recent promotion at work. Maybe for once, I wouldn't just be the background character in the story of my own family. Despite 17 years of disappointment, something in me still clung to the possibility of finally being seen. I remember the first time I realized I wasn't equal to my sisters. I was 8 years old, sitting on the stairs, peering through the railing as my parents fawned over Stephanie's perfect report card and Amber's victory at the regional science fair. I had gotten an A on my spelling test that day, my first perfect score, and I clutched the paper tightly, waiting for a break in conversation to show them. "We are so proud of you girls," my father said, his voice warm with admiration. "You two are going to change the world someday." I finally mustered the courage to walk into the living room and show my spelling test. "Look what I got today," I said, holding out my paper with a bright red A and a gold star sticker. My mother glanced at it. "That's nice, Maya. Put it on the fridge if you want." Then she immediately turned back to Amber, asking for details about her winning project. My test paper never made it to the refrigerator. Instead, I tucked it into my special box under the bed, where I kept all the things that were important to me, but not to anyone else. By the time I turned 10, the pattern had solidified. I was expected to clean not just my room, but help with my sister's rooms too. Stephanie has medical school applications to work on, my mother would say, and Amber has cheerleading practice. You have plenty of time to help out. I remember one particular day when I was 12. I had been sick with the flu, running a fever of 102 degrees. It was also Amber's 17th birthday, and she was having friends over for a party. Despite my illness, my mother insisted I help prepare the food and set up decorations. But Mom, I don't feel good, I protested weakly, my voice hoarse. Everyone gets sick, Maya, she replied dismissively. The party is important to your sister. You can rest tomorrow. I spent that afternoon arranging cupcakes on tiered stands and hanging streamers, while periodically running to the bathroom to throw up. During the party, I hid in my bedroom listening to the laughter downstairs and crying silently into my pillow. No one checked on me, not even once. When I was 13, I had been taking piano lessons for 3 years and was finally selected to perform a solo at the spring recital. It was the first time I had been chosen for something special, and for weeks I practiced every day after school. The night of the recital arrived, and I put on my nicest dress, excited for my family to see me shine for once. But that morning, Stephanie called with news that she had been accepted to a prestigious medical internship program and wanted to celebrate. My parents immediately decided we would all go to dinner with her, instead of attending my recital. But my performance is tonight, I said, my voice small as I stood in the kitchen, sheet music clutched in my hands. There will be other recitals, my father said. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for your sister. I went to the recital alone, getting a ride from my piano teacher. When I performed my piece perfectly, there was polite applause from strangers, but no one was there to see it who actually knew me. That night, as we celebrated Stephanie's achievement at an expensive restaurant, no one even asked how my performance had gone. By the time I reached high school, I had fully accepted my role as the family servant. I cooked dinner when my mother was busy with her book club. I did the laundry for everyone because Stephanie was too busy with her studies and Amber had too many social events. I became the default babysitter whenever my sisters needed someone to watch their kids, even if I had plans of my own. The most painful memory came during my high school graduation. I had worked hard to become valedictorian, something neither of my sisters had accomplished. The ceremony was at 10 in the morning, and I was scheduled to give my speech at 11. My parents and sisters promised they would be there. At 10:30, as I sat in my cap and gown looking anxiously at the empty seats reserved for my family, I received a text from my mother. So sorry, honey. Amber's car broke down and we had to help. Stephanie got called into an emergency surgery. We'll celebrate later at home. Good luck. I gave my speech to a crowd of strangers and collected my diploma alone. When I returned home, there was no celebration. Instead, my mother asked if I could help prepare dinner because everyone would be home late and tired. That night, as I chopped vegetables for a meal no one had congratulated me on, I realized I would never be equal in my own home. After high school, I had plans to attend college out of state. I had been accepted to the University of Washington in Seattle with a partial scholarship. It was my chance to finally escape the shadow of my sisters and create my own identity. 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave, my mother was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. We need you here, Maya, my father said solemnly. Your sisters have their careers and families. They can't put everything on hold. But you can take classes at the community college nearby and help take care of your mother. So I stayed. I deferred my admission to Washington and enrolled in local classes while becoming my mother's primary caretaker. I drove her to chemotherapy appointments, managed her medications, prepared special meals that wouldn't upset her stomach, and took over running the household entirely. My sisters visited occasionally, bringing flowers and sympathetic smiles, but always leaving before the hard work began. When my mother recovered after 18 months of treatment, I expected things to change. Perhaps now I could pursue my dreams, maybe transfer to a 4-year university, and finish my degree properly. Instead, it became the new normal for me to remain at home. Your mother still needs monitoring, my father would say, Or, "It's so helpful having you manage the house." The temporary arrangement became permanent, and my dreams of Seattle faded into a distant memory. Now, at 25, I work as an accounting clerk at a small firm in Boston. It's not what I had imagined for myself, but I've managed to take online courses in the evenings and am close to finishing my bachelor's degree in business administration. My boss has hinted at a potential promotion once I graduate, which gives me something to look forward to. Meanwhile, my role as the family servant has only expanded as my sisters have added children to the equation. Stephanie calls me at least 3 times a week to pick up Ethan and Isabella from school because she has surgeries scheduled and her nanny called in sick again. I suspect the nanny is perfectly healthy, but Stephanie knows I'm a free alternative. Amber frequently asks me to bake elaborate desserts for her company events, claiming no one makes chocolate eclairs quite like I do. What she means is no one will make 36 chocolate eclairs from scratch, for no payment except a casual "thanks, sis." And last month she texted me at 11 at night, asking if I could have 4 dozen cupcakes ready by 9 the next morning because she forgot to order them for a work function. Both sisters expect me to be present at every family gathering, not as a participant, but as the photographer, the server, the dishwasher, and the childcare provider. If I try to engage in adult conversation, one of them inevitably interrupts with, "Maya, could you check on the kids?" Or, "Maya, we need more ice in the drinks." Last Christmas, I spent 7 hours cooking a full holiday meal for 14 people, including my sisters-in-laws. When it came time to eat, there wasn't enough room at the main table, so I sat at the kids' table in the kitchen. No one thought this was strange except me. When I occasionally try to say no to their demands, the guilt trips begin immediately. "Family helps family," my mother will say. Or Stephanie will sigh dramatically. "I guess I'll just have to cancel this important surgery then." Amber's favorite tactic is to say, "Sophie was so looking forward to seeing her Aunt Maya. She'll be so disappointed." 3 days ago, my mother called about the upcoming anniversary dinner. "We need you to come over early to help prepare," she said, not asking but telling. "And can you make your special potato salad? Oh, and Stephanie mentioned you're making a cake." This was news to me. "Mom, I wasn't planning on making a cake. I have a big project due at work the next day." "Maya," she said in that tone that brooked no argument, "this is important to the family. Stephanie specifically told the kids you'd be making their favorite chocolate cake. You wouldn't want to disappoint them, would you?" Before I could respond, she continued, "Also, we need you to watch the kids during the actual dinner. The adults need to talk about some financial matters, and you know how children get bored. You're so good with them." That was when I realized I wasn't considered one of the adults in my own family. Despite being 25 years old with nearly a completed degree and a full-time job, I was still seen as the helper, the background character, the perpetual child who wasn't worthy of being included in important conversations. After hanging up, I sat on my bed and cried for the first time in years. I thought I had grown numb to this treatment, but something about this particular conversation broke through my carefully constructed walls. Maybe it was the casual way my mother volunteered me to make a cake I knew nothing about. Maybe it was being excluded from adult conversations. Or maybe it was simply the straw that broke the camel's back after 17 years of similar treatment. Last week, I overheard something that changed everything. I had stopped by my parents' house to drop off some groceries my mother had asked me to pick up on my way home from work. I was about to announce my presence when I heard Stephanie and Amber talking in the kitchen. "So, for the anniversary dinner, we really just need to make sure Maya handles everything," Stephanie was saying between sips of wine. "I've got that hospital fundraiser the night before and I'll be exhausted." Amber laughed. "Don't worry, Maya will do whatever we ask. She always does. I've already told Ryan we don't need to hire a sitter for Sophie. Why pay when Maya is always free? Remember that time she tried to say she couldn't babysit because she had concert tickets?" Stephanie snickered. "Mom shut that down so fast." "She's such a pushover," Amber replied. "Sometimes I feel a little bad, but then I remember how easy she has it. No real responsibilities, still living in that cheap apartment, no kids to worry about." I stood frozen in the hallway, groceries heavy in my arms, as my sisters casually dissected my life and dismissed my boundaries. They didn't see me as someone deserving respect or consideration. I was a resource to be used, a convenience that made their lives easier. And worst of all, they didn't even appreciate it. They thought I had it easy. After they moved to another room, I silently left the groceries on the counter and slipped out without anyone knowing I had been there. I drove home in a daze, their words replaying in my mind like a cruel soundtrack. That night I couldn't sleep staring at the ceiling of my cheap apartment that I actually worked hard to afford while paying down student loans from the community college. 3 days before the big family dinner, something unexpected happened. My boss called me into his office at the end of the day. I thought perhaps I had made a mistake on the quarterly reports I had submitted, but instead he was smiling. Maya, I've been watching your work for the past year and I've been very impressed, he said. Your attention to detail, your commitment to improving our systems, and the leadership you've shown with the junior staff have not gone unnoticed. I know you're close to finishing your degree, and I wanted to let you know that there's a position opening up for an accounting manager. The salary would be nearly double what you're making now, and I think you'd be perfect for it. I sat there in shock, barely able to process what he was saying. Someone had noticed my hard work. Someone had seen my value. For the first time in my adult life, I felt a genuine sense of pride and accomplishment. "Thank you, sir," I managed to say. "I would be very interested in the position." "There's one catch," he continued. "The position is at our Seattle office. They need someone to start in 3 weeks. I know it's a big move, but it's a fantastic opportunity. Think about it and let me know by the end of the week." Seattle, the city I had dreamed of escaping to 7 years ago. It felt like the universe was giving me a second chance. That evening, I called my parents, excited to share my good news. My mother answered, and I could hear the chaos of family in the background. "Mom, I have amazing news," I said, unable to keep the excitement from my voice. "My boss offered me a promotion to accounting manager. It would mean double my current salary, and—" "That's nice, dear," my mother interrupted. "Listen about the anniversary dinner. You'll still be able to help prepare everything, right? We're counting on you for the appetizers and dessert." My excitement deflated like a punctured balloon. "Did you hear what I said, Mom? This is a huge opportunity for me." "Yes, yes, a promotion. That's wonderful. So about the dinner." Before I could respond, I heard Stephanie's voice in the background. "Mom, I need to tell you about this incredible surgery I performed yesterday. 8 hours, the most complex procedure I've ever done. The hospital director personally congratulated me." "Oh, Stephanie, that's amazing," my mother exclaimed, her voice lighting up with genuine enthusiasm. "Maya, hold on, Stephanie's telling me about a groundbreaking surgery she just did." For the next 10 minutes, I held the phone as my mother oohed and awed over Stephanie's accomplishment, completely forgetting I was even on the line. When she finally remembered I was there, she didn't return to my news. "So, as I was saying for the dinner, we'll need you to prepare your special spinach dip. And Amber mentioned that Sophie has been asking for your chocolate cupcakes with the rainbow sprinkles. You can make those too, right?" I hesitated, then quietly said, "Sure, Mom." "Oh, and one more thing," she added. "Amber's babysitter canceled for that evening. You'll be okay watching all 3 kids during dinner, won't you? The adults want to have a nice, uninterrupted celebration." There it was again. The casual exclusion, the assumption that I wasn't part of the adults who deserved to celebrate. I managed to mumble some form of agreement before ending the call. I sat on my couch staring at nothing as the final pieces of my decision fell into place. The next day, Amber called not to check on me or ask about my life, but to add to my list of tasks. "Maya, I need a favor. Can you make those little finger sandwiches that Sophie loves? Oh, and she wants to wear her princess costume to the dinner, but it needs to be hemmed. You're good with the needle, right?" I barely registered what I was agreeing to. My mind was elsewhere, formulating a plan that had been years in the making without me even realizing it. One day before the dinner, my mother called with what would be the final straw. "Maya, honey, for tomorrow's dinner, just watch the kids while we celebrate." "Okay, the adults need some time to toast and reminisce." Something inside me snapped. The words echoed in my head. Just watch the kids while we celebrate. After 17 years of being treated like a servant, after having my promotion ignored, after being explicitly excluded from the category of adults at 25 years old, I had finally reached my breaking point. "Okay, Mom," I said calmly. a new resolve hardening within me. I'll see you tomorrow. As I hung up the phone, I knew with absolute certainty that tomorrow's family dinner would indeed be their last celebration with me as their doormat. What they didn't know was that I had finally found the courage to stand up for myself, and nothing would ever be the same again. The morning of the anniversary dinner, I woke up with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in years. Instead of immediately checking my phone for the inevitable barrage of last-minute requests from my family, I took my time getting ready. I brewed a cup of strong coffee and sat by my window watching the early morning sunlight filter through the trees. Today would be different. Today, everything would change. I opened my closet and pushed past the practical, forgettable clothes I usually wore to family functions. At the back, still wrapped in plastic from the store, was a stunning emerald green dress I had purchased months ago, but never had the courage to wear. It was fitted elegant and made me look like the professional I was striving to be, rather than the invisible helper my family expected. While getting dressed, I called Amanda, my best friend from college, who now ran a successful accounting firm in Seattle. We had kept in touch over the years, and she had been urging me to make a change for as long as I could remember. "Today's the day," I told her when she answered. "I'm doing it. I'm finally standing up to them." "About time," she exclaimed. "I've had your room ready for weeks. Just say the word and I'll book your flight." After our conversation, I pulled out my laptop and confirmed the job offer with my boss. Then I opened my email and found the housing information Amanda had sent. Everything was falling into place. I had already packed 2 suitcases with my most essential belongings, ready for a swift departure. As I applied makeup more carefully than usual, my phone buzzed with a text from Stephanie. "Can you come over an hour early to help set up? Jackson has a golf thing and can't help. Thanks in advance." The old Maya would have immediately agreed, rearranging her own schedule to accommodate her sister's demands. The new Maya typed back, "Sorry, I have some things to finish before dinner. I'll be there at the time Mom and Dad requested." 3 dots appeared as Stephanie typed, disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, "But we need help setting up the tables and chairs." I put my phone down without responding and continued getting ready. By the time I was dressed with my hair styled in loose waves rather than my usual practical ponytail, I hardly recognized myself in the mirror. I looked confident, poised, and decidedly adult. My phone had accumulated 6 more messages, a mix of reminders about what I was supposed to bring, and thinly veiled demands disguised as requests. I ignored them all. For the first time in my life, I was prioritizing myself, and it felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Before leaving my apartment, I looked around at the space that had been my sanctuary for the past 3 years. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, paid for with my own hard-earned money. In a few days, I would be leaving it behind for a new beginning in Seattle. The thought filled me with a mixture of sadness and hope. I arrived at my parents' house exactly on time, carrying only a small gift bag containing a card and a framed photo of my parents from their wedding day that I had found in an old album and had professionally restored. No homemade appetizers, no elaborate cake, no specially hemmed princess costume. The moment I walked through the door, I could feel the tension. The dining room was only partially set up, with stacks of plates still on the counter and flowers not yet arranged in vases. Stephanie was rushing around, her face flushed with frustration, while Amber was trying to calm a crying Sophie. My mother was in the kitchen looking frazzled as she checked something in the oven. When they saw me, there was a moment of collective relief that quickly turned to confusion as they took in my appearance. "Maya," my mother said, her eyes widening, "you look different." Stephanie was less subtle. "Where are the appetizers? And why are you so dressed up? You know you'll be chasing after the kids, right?" I smiled calmly. "I thought I'd dress for the occasion. It is a celebration after all." My father emerged from his study already dressed in a suit. He did a double take when he saw me. "Well, don't you look nice?" he said, the surprise evident in his voice. It occurred to me that he might be seeing me as an adult for the first time. The next hour was a flurry of activity as everyone scrambled to finish preparations without my usual assistance. I offered minimal help setting the table when asked directly, but not volunteering for any additional tasks. The tension grew as my family gradually realized that their reliable helper was not following the usual script. By the time we all sat down to dinner, the mood was noticeably strained. The table was beautifully set despite the rushed preparations, with candles glowing, and the good china that only came out for special occasions. My parents sat at either end with Stephanie Jackson and their children on one side, and Amber, Ryan, and Sophie on the other. I was seated at the far end closest to the kitchen as usual. My father stood to make a toast. "To 35 wonderful years with the love of my life," he said, raising his glass toward my mother. "And to our beautiful family. We're so proud of all our girls, especially Stephanie with her remarkable achievement this week. To many more years of happiness and success." Everyone clinked glasses, and the conversation immediately turned to Stephanie's groundbreaking surgery. She described the procedure in great detail, with everyone hanging on her every word. Then Amber jumped in with news about a major marketing campaign she had just landed, which prompted more congratulations and questions. Throughout it all, no one asked about my promotion or my life. I sat quietly observing the familiar pattern with new eyes. The only time anyone addressed me directly was when glasses needed refilling, or when Ethan spilled his juice and someone needed to clean it up. As the main course was being served, my mother turned to me with that familiar look, the one that preceded a command disguised as a request. "Maya, dear, would you mind watching the children in the playroom? We're about to discuss some financial matters and the kids are getting restless. We'll save you some dessert." The table fell silent, everyone waiting for my usual acquiescence. Instead, I set down my napkin and stood up, smoothing my emerald dress. "Actually, before I do that, I have something I'd like to say." My mother looked startled. "Can't it wait until after dinner?" "No, Mom, it can't." I took a deep breath and looked around the table at my family, these people who had shaped my life in ways both good and bad. First, I want to congratulate Mom and Dad on 35 years of marriage. That's truly an accomplishment worth celebrating. My parents smiled, though confusion lingered in their eyes. "I also have some news of my own to share," I continued. "3 days ago, I was offered a promotion at work. I'm going to be an accounting manager with a salary that's double what I make now. It's an incredible opportunity, one that I've worked very hard for." There was a moment of surprised silence before my father said, "Well, that's wonderful news, Maya. Congratulations." "Thank you," I said, noting the genuine pride in his voice with a pang of what might have been. "The position is in Seattle, and I've accepted it. I leave in 3 days." "Seattle," my mother exclaimed. "But that's across the country. You can't possibly move so far away." "What about family dinners? Who will help with the children? Have you really thought this through?" And there it was, the real concern. Not how this opportunity would benefit me or advance my career, but how my absence would inconvenience them. "I've thought about it very carefully," I replied calmly. "And it's time for me to prioritize my own life and goals. For 17 years, since I was 8 years old, I've been treated like a servant in this family. I've cooked, cleaned, babysat, and put my own dreams on hold to support everyone else's. I stayed home when Mom was sick instead of going to college. I've been at the beck and call of both my sisters whenever they needed free childcare or help with their events." Stephanie's face flushed with anger. "That's ridiculous! We're family, we help each other." "Do we?" I asked, looking directly at her. "When was the last time you helped me with anything, Stephanie? When was the last time either of you—" I glanced at Amber. "Asked about my life or my goals or offered to support me in any way?" Amber shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "You never said you were unhappy." "I shouldn't have had to say it," I replied. "You should have seen it. All those times I was excluded from adult conversations despite being 25 years old. All those times my accomplishments were ignored while yours were celebrated. All those times I was expected to drop everything to meet your needs with no consideration for mine." My mother began to cry softly. "We never meant to hurt you, Maya. We just thought you were always so helpful, so good with the children." "I know you didn't intend to hurt me," I said, my voice softening slightly. but the impact was the same regardless of your intentions. And yesterday, when you called to tell me to just watch the kids while we celebrate, something finally clicked. I realized I deserved to be part of the celebration. I deserved to be seen as an adult with valid contributions and a life of my own. My father cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the emotional confrontation. Maya, perhaps this isn't the best time for this discussion. The children are present, and it's supposed to be a celebration. It is a celebration, I said firmly. It's a celebration of me finally valuing myself enough to make a change. This dinner will be the last time I participate in family gatherings as the designated servant. From now on, if I'm invited to family events, it will be as an equal member of this family, not as the built-in babysitter or caterer. Stephanie stood up abruptly. This is so selfish of you. You're ruining Mom and Dad's anniversary with your dramatics. I remained calm, even as I felt tears threatening. I'm sorry you see it that way, but I need you all to understand that this isn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This has been building for 17 years and I can't do it anymore. I won't do it anymore. The children had grown quiet, sensing the tension. Little Sophie looked up at me with wide eyes. Are you going away, Aunt Maya? My heart softened as I looked at my niece. Yes, sweetie, I'm moving to a new city for a job that makes me very happy. But I'll still be your aunt, and I'll visit sometimes. Won't you watch movies with me anymore? Her lower lip trembled. I will when I visit, I promised. And we can have video calls too. I turned back to the adults at the table. I love all of you, but I need to love myself too. And that means making changes that are good for me, even if they're uncomfortable for everyone else. With that, I picked up my purse and gift bag. Mom, Dad, here's your anniversary present. I had your wedding photo restored. I hope you like it. I placed the bag on the table and walked toward the door, my heart pounding, but my resolve firm. Behind me, I could hear the beginnings of protest confusion, and perhaps a dawning realization of the truth in my words. As I stepped outside into the cool evening air, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Pain at the hurt I had caused, grief for the family relationships I had hoped for but never received, and underneath it all, a profound sense of freedom. For the first time in my adult life, I was choosing myself, and despite the difficulty of this moment, I knew it was the right choice. I got into my car and drove away from my parents' house, leaving behind not just a family dinner, but 17 years of being overlooked, undervalued, and taken for granted. Tomorrow would bring a new beginning, and for once I was truly looking forward to the future. The drive back to my apartment felt surreal, as if I were floating outside my body. Had I really just done that? Had I actually stood up to my family after all these years of silent compliance? The weight that lifted from my shoulders was almost physical, leaving me feeling lighter than I had in years. When I arrived home, my phone was already filling with missed calls and text messages. I silenced it and placed it face down on my nightstand. Tonight was for me for processing what had happened and preparing for what came next. Tomorrow would be soon enough to deal with the fallout. I changed out of my emerald dress, carefully hanging it in my closet. It would come with me to Seattle, a reminder of the day I finally found my voice. As I got ready for bed, I caught my reflection in the mirror and was struck by how different I looked. My eyes were brighter, my posture straighter. Even my face seemed changed somehow, as if years of suppressed emotion had been released in a single evening. That night I slept more soundly than I had in years. The next morning, I awoke to 23 missed calls and 37 text messages. Some were angry, like Stephanie's. How could you humiliate us like that? So selfish. Others were pleading like my mother's. Please call us Maya. We need to talk. A few were unexpected, like my father's simple text. I had no idea you felt this way. I'm sorry. After a quiet breakfast and a cup of coffee, I began the practical tasks of my transition. I confirmed my flight to Seattle for 3 days later. I notified my landlord that I would be breaking my lease and paid the penalty fee. I arranged for my furniture to be donated and my personal belongings to be shipped. Throughout the day, my phone continued to buzz with messages and calls. Around noon, I finally answered one from Amanda. How did it go? She asked immediately. Did you do it? I did, I replied, still somewhat amazed at myself. I told them everything, how I felt, what I'm doing next. It was intense. I'm so proud of you, she said warmly. Your room is all ready, and I've got a list of apartments we can look at next week. This is going to be great, Maya, a fresh start. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and for the first time I allowed myself to feel genuine excitement about the future. Not anxiety, not guilt, but pure, unadulterated anticipation for what my life could become. That evening, I decided to respond to my father's text. Of all the messages, his had seemed the most sincere, the most open to actual dialogue. I wrote, "Thank you for saying that, Dad. I know it wasn't easy to hear, but it's been building for a long time. I'm not doing this to hurt anyone. I just need to build my own life." His response came quickly. "I understand. More than you might think. Can we talk before you leave?" We arranged to meet for coffee the next day at a neutral location, a cafe halfway between our homes. When I arrived, he was already there, looking older and more tired than I remembered. "Maya," he said, standing to greet me. "Thank you for meeting me." We sat down with our coffees in awkward silence, stretching between us. Finally, he spoke. "Your mother and I had a long talk last night. Actually, we were up most of the night talking. What you said, it made us realize some things we hadn't seen before." I waited, not jumping in to fill the silence, as I might have done in the past. "I've been thinking about when you were little," he continued. "You were always so capable, so self-sufficient. We never worried about you the way we worried about your sisters. Stephanie was so intense, so driven, that we feared she would burn herself out. Amber was so social that we worried she wasn't focusing enough on her future. But you seemed fine on your own." He stared into his coffee. "I see now that we mistook your self-sufficiency for not needing us. We took advantage of your willingness to help. We didn't see that you needed support and recognition just as much as your sisters." His words were like a balm to wounds I had carried for so long. "I did need you," I said softly. "I still do, just not in the way things have been." "Your mother is devastated," he admitted. "She truly had no idea how you felt. Neither did I, really. We thought we were a happy family." "Parts of us were," I acknowledged. "But not all of us. Not me." We talked for almost 2 hours, covering ground that should have been traversed years ago. I explained how it felt to be constantly overlooked, to have my achievements dismissed, to be treated as less than adult. He listened, really listened, perhaps for the first time. "I don't expect everything to change overnight," I told him as we prepared to leave. "And I'm still going to Seattle. I need this opportunity, this fresh start. But maybe we can build something new, something healthier, even with the distance." He nodded, his eyes suspiciously damp. "I'd like that very much." The following day, my final one in Boston, both of my sisters reached out. Stephanie's message was still defensive, but had softened somewhat from her initial reaction. "I still think you could have handled it differently," she wrote. "But I'm trying to understand. Jackson pointed out some things that made me think. Maybe we could talk before you go." Amber's approach was more direct. She called and immediately said, "I messed up, didn't I?" "We all did." "Yes," I said simply. "I don't think I realized how one-sided things had become," she admitted. "Ryan actually got angry with me last night. He said he's been uncomfortable with how we treat you for years, but didn't feel it was his place to say anything. I'm sorry, Maya. Truly." These conversations were painful but necessary, the lancing of old wounds to allow healing to begin. I didn't promise instant forgiveness, but I did leave the door open for future reconciliation. My mother was the last to reach out, appearing at my apartment the evening before my departure. Her eyes were red-rimmed from crying, and she carried a small gift box. "May I come in?" she asked hesitantly, so different from her usual confident demeanor. I invited her inside, offering tea, which she accepted with hands that trembled slightly. "I brought you something," she said, pushing the box toward me. It was meant to be a going-away present, but now it feels like so much more. I opened it to find a delicate silver locket. Inside was a tiny photo of the five of us, our family taken when I was about 6 years old, before the patterns had fully set, when I still felt like an equal part of the family. "I want you to know," she said, her voice breaking, "that I love you just as much as your sisters. I always have. I failed to show it properly, and that's on me, not you. I hope someday you can forgive me." I fastened the locket around my neck, feeling the weight of it against my skin. "I think I can, Mom. Not all at once, but over time." She left shortly after, both of us emotional, but with a tentative bridge beginning to form where a chasm had existed before. The next morning, I boarded a plane to Seattle, leaving behind the only city I had ever called home. As the aircraft lifted into the clouds, I touched the locket at my throat and allowed myself to feel the full spectrum of emotions: grief for what should have been, hope for what could be, and most of all, pride in myself for finally breaking free of patterns that had held me back for far too long. 3 months have passed since I moved to Seattle, and my life has transformed in ways I never could have imagined. The city welcomed me with its misty mornings and vibrant energy, so different from the structured formality of Boston. My job as accounting manager challenges me daily, pushing me to grow professionally and gain confidence in my abilities. Living with Amanda was temporary, as planned. After 6 weeks, I found my own apartment in a charming neighborhood with tree-lined streets and local coffee shops on every corner. It's small but bright, with large windows that frame a view of distant mountains on clear days. For the first time, I've decorated a space exactly as I want it, with no consideration for anyone else's preferences or judgments. The early days weren't easy. Despite the rightness of my decision, I experienced waves of guilt and doubt. Had I been too harsh, too dramatic? Should I have tried harder to address the issues before reaching my breaking point? My therapist, whom I started seeing within my first week here, helped me understand that these feelings were natural after breaking such long-standing patterns. "What you're experiencing is called fawner's remorse," she explained during one session. "When you've spent years prioritizing others' needs above your own, it feels wrong, even selfish, to finally put yourself first. But it's not selfish, Maya. It's necessary for your well-being." Gradually, I've built a life that revolves around my own interests and goals. I joined a local hiking group and discovered I love being in nature, something I never had time to explore in Boston. I've taken cooking classes, not to prepare meals for others, but because I enjoy the creativity of it. I've made new friends who know me only as Maya, the accounting manager, Maya, the hiker, Maya, the amateur chef, not Maya, the reliable helper, Maya, the babysitter, Maya, the invisible sister. My relationship with my family has evolved in unexpected ways. The distance, both physical and emotional, created space for new patterns to emerge. My father calls weekly, our conversations deeper and more authentic than they've ever been. He asks about my work, my apartment, my new friends, and actually listens to my answers. My mother's adjustment has been more difficult. Old habits die hard, and her first several calls included requests for recipes, advice on household matters, and other subtle attempts to maintain our previous dynamic. Gently but firmly, I redirected these conversations, and over time, she's begun to see me through a different lens. Stephanie and I have reached a tentative truce. Her initial anger gave way to reluctant introspection, and eventually to halting attempts at a more equal relationship. Last month, she called not to ask for something, but to tell me about a difficult surgery that went wrong, sharing her feelings of inadequacy and fear in a way she never had before. It was the first time she had been vulnerable with me, treating me as a peer rather than a subordinate. Amber's transformation has been the most surprising. Of all my family members, she has made the most consistent effort to change. She sends thoughtful texts asking about my day. She apologized without qualifications for taking advantage of me over the years. When her daughter Sophie had a birthday, she hired a proper caterer instead of expecting me to handle it from across the country. The children ask about me often, I'm told. We have video calls where I read them stories or just chat about their days. These relationships, unburdened by the dysfunctional adult dynamics, remain the most straightforward and joyful. Last week, my parents suggested a family vacation next summer, somewhere neutral, like a beach resort. Everyone pays their own way, my father emphasized. Everyone contributes equally to group meals and activities. No one person responsible for everything. I haven't given them an answer yet. Part of me is cautiously optimistic that real change is possible. Another part remains wary, protective of the independence I've fought so hard to establish. What I know for certain is that I will never again allow myself to be treated as less than I am. I've learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential. That helping others should be a choice, freely made, not an expectation imposed. That love without respect isn't really love at all. The journey of healing isn't linear. There are days when old hurts resurface, when a text or call from family triggers patterns I'm trying to break. But those moments grow fewer and further between as I strengthen my sense of self-worth. The locket my mother gave me sits on my dresser now, not around my neck. It represents a past that shaped me but no longer defines me. Perhaps someday I'll wear it again, when the weight of it feels like a connection rather than a burden. As I sit on my balcony watching the sunset paint the Seattle skyline in shades of pink and gold, I feel a profound sense of peace. The path that brought me here was painful but necessary. By standing up for myself at that family dinner, I wasn't just changing one evening, I was changing the trajectory of my entire life. If you're watching this and something in my story resonates with you, know that it's never too late to rewrite your role in your own life. Setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away. It's about teaching them how to be close to you in ways that are healthy for everyone. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say no to what doesn't serve you, so you can say yes to what does. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family? How did it change your relationships? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story touched you, please subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, you deserve to be valued, respected, and celebrated, not just for what you do for others, but for who you are. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to write your own happy ending.